So you know those full motion level D flight simulators? Those are those things that look like beach houses up on stilts where they pitch and roll and yaw and move around to make you feel like you're inside a real airplane when you're flying them. They're kind of the ultimate in flight simulation. Whenever they're in operation, there's always at least two people on board. One, of course, is the pilot who thinks he's in a real airplane, and the other is the flight instructor. He's the guy sitting in back that's controlling all the location, weather, and failures, and all the things that can go wrong with the flight. And whenever a professional pilot shows up for his flight training at the beginning of the day, the instructor's all like, "And don't worry, I'm just here to help you." And then, of course, as the flight progresses, the instructor changes to more like, "Now I'm going to fail everything." And by the time you're done flying one of these simulator sessions, you're like covered in sweat and just completely worn out because every single thing that could go wrong has gone wrong in the simulator. And it's all thanks to that instructor in the back that's triggering all the failures. But here's the interesting thing. Unlike a home use flight simulator, like X-Plane for example, where you have to bring up menus and windows to invoke failures in the simulator, in this level D flight simulation situation, the pilot flying does not know what failures are going to be induced. The whole important thing about this is the instructor has his own interface to control the failures. So failures can be induced without the pilot flying knowing what's happening. Can I bring this level of flight training to X-Plane and home use? And the answer is yes. And my attempt to do that in its latest iteration is X-Plane 12, which is available for Macintosh, Windows, and Linux desktop operating systems. I'm not talking about the mobile version of X-Plane here. And for iPad and iPhone, an app called InstructorStation. Let me show you how it works. The first thing you need to do is get both your desktop X-Plane and your iPad on the same local area network, same as you probably are already doing. Once you've got them both on the same local area network, you can fire up InstructorStation and you will get a list of every copy of X-Plane that it's talking to. Boop. Select one, and you're off to the races. Okay, let's work through each menu down here from left to right, and we'll cover every function that InstructorStation can do. We'll start with the craft menu. So X-Plane 12 for desktop computers sends every airplane on the hard drive over here to InstructorStation on the iPad. So we can open any airplane we want. Let's say, for example, we want to switch to the Cirrus SR-22, which is an airplane you might know. Make the selection here on InstructorStation, and it happens in X-Plane. And the beauty of this is we never had to invoke a user interface here on the desktop copy of X-Plane. Whatever we control here just happens. The next thing we might want to do is go to the Start menu, and we can type in any airport identifier we want. KBTV, for example, Burlington, Vermont, 10-mile final. And now, as the little instructor back here, I've initiated what the pilot flying is about to go through. In this case, it's a 10-mile final over Lake Champlain approaching Burlington, Vermont. Now, I am not going to try to explain InstructorStation to you at the same time that an unmanned version of X-Plane gradually crashes into Lake Champlain. So let's go for runway 15 takeoff, put the airplane on the ground so I can focus on talking to you without there being an airplane crashing in front of me in slow motion. The next thing we do is a weight and balance screen. So this thing called CG, that's center of gravity. And right now, because it's at the bottom, the airplane is light, and because it's left, the center of gravity is forwards. I can drag the CG slider up to make the airplane heavier, and as that's happening, you may notice that payload was increasing. And then I can drag the center of gravity forward. You'll notice more weight is sitting on the airplane's nose gear, or backwards, and you can see the nose coming up a little bit as that weight comes aft. Let's go about like this. We can also set the fuel available in each tank, and you'll notice as we change the fuel loadout, the center of gravity changes as well. The next menu is my favorite one, weather. We can set to clear and visibility okay, of course, or VFR or marginal VFR. And what's kind of cool is no matter how fast I push buttons, that's how fast X-Plane reacts here. We can turn real weather on or off, and we can have conditions rapidly improving, getting better over time, or rapidly deteriorating, getting worse over time. We can set the time of day to anything we want, of course, as well. Let's set it to night, and then let's fail the runway lights. Look at that, runway lights off, or low, or medium, or high. So we can set the runway light intensity as well. All right, let's go back to a time of day where we can see what's going on here. Next is detail weather setting. If you have a really low visibility, you drag the RVR slider, stands for runway visual range. You can set the runway visibility in feet, or drag the visibility slider to set the visibility in statute miles if you want a lot of visibility. We can bring in some rain, but notice I don't see a lot of rain in the windshield right now, and that's because we are under a rather scattered or broken layer. Well, of course, there's a solution to that. Let's make this an overcast cumulus. And now that we've set some rain, we are definitely in the rain. The rain isn't just coming from a cloud that we're not under. And we can have enough rain to put some serious restrictions on our visibility. All right, let's turn the rain off just so we can see what we're doing here. We can set our pavement to wet, standing water, patchy snow, patchy ice, patchy snow and ice, and just to show you what that looks like, we've got pretty decent rendering, and not only that, but we've also got a lot less friction on the runway for braking and turning. We can set wave direction, wave height, that's for seaplanes, temperature offset, barometric pressure, and thermal strength, that's for gliders. So we can set weather for seaplanes and gliders as well. Hop on over to the clouds menu, and as you just saw, we can set our clouds to anything we like. Let's set this to scattered cumulus from 2,000 up to 24,000. So maybe we want a thinner layer instead. So we simply grab it and drag down, and now you can see you have a thinner layer. Next interface I kind of like is wind. And so we can set the wind at 3 different altitudes. And all we do is drag the little wind control center, if you will, to whatever altitude we want to control. So I'm going to grab this little wind control pad, area and drag it to 3,000 feet. And then maybe I want to have, let's say the winds be at 29 knots, gust 34, turbulence 22% from direction 315. There we go, I just set the winds. The next thing I want to show you is really cool. This is called fronts. So check this out. I'm going to invoke a map here in X-Plane. And let's say as the instructor in the back of the plane, I'm telling the pilot I want him to fly west, okay? I want him to go this way. Well then, can you guess what's happening here? I'm just gonna do this. Let's do that. And so what I've just done is put a big front off to his west. Wherever I feel like dragging my finger, that's where the front is going to appear. And so I can just make the challenge, and of course I can really be evil and say, oh, and I'm also going to block you off on the other side as well. And so you can simply drag your finger to form fronts any place you like, and that is going to set up a nearly impassable wall, if you want, of weather. And if I were to tell this guy he needs to go west, well, then maybe he would be wise to check this radar and probably go through that way, and I bet you he can make it all right. But this is really a nice little way to get into strategic planning. And what is so cool is, while I just dragged my finger really quickly to form a front, I had the code add all the detail to really make it look like a real honest-to-goodness thunderstorm coming through. Now the next one we can do gets really fun. Failures. We can do things like a bird strike. Oh, look, there's a lot of birds and they took out the engine. Okay, let's see. Let's repair all. Seems a little silly that it would catch the engine on fire when the airplane's not moving. So I recommend you do bird strike when you're actually in flight. Smoke in cockpit. That's another super scary one. When that comes up, it's, well, I don't have to tell you how difficult it can be to deal with an airplane at that point. Let's get rid of that one. That one actually scares me a bit. We've got, oh, another cool one is microburst. So microburst in X-Plane 12 are pretty incredible. It's an awesome three-dimensional model where you can see the wind coming down, hitting the ground and spreading out. And then all of the dynamics associated with that, which is flying into a headwind, coming into the microburst and getting a lot of extra air over the wings, which helps you, being underneath, which pushes you down, and then worst of all, being past the microburst, where you lose airspeed and fall to the ground. All of that is simulated. But we don't just have weather failures. Let's go over here to systems. We can fail electrical bus 1 and electrical bus 2. Oh, there we go. We just lost our avionics. Well, let's bring our emergency bus. Well, okay, at least you got primary flight display. Now let's bring both our buses back. So we can have generator low voltage, battery low voltage. Heck, you can do a battery high volt, which is going to trigger like a warning or an alert. You can fail battery and generator. And now we're just down to our absolute essentials here. We got, oh my gosh, lights, autopilot, controls, oh my gosh, pitch control 2, hard down. So all the secondary flight controls will go down. Landing gear actuator collapse. All right, so this is a Cirrus SR-22. It has fixed gear. De-ice, all the de-ice failures, equipment failures, hydraulic system links, tail rotor transmission for helicopters, throttle jam at idle, throttle jam at max. Ooh, I don't want that. The airplane's starting to take off here on me. Instruments, static port blockage, pitot tube number 2 blockage, vacuum pump 1, fuel quantity sensor. It goes on and on. Engine flame out, engine separation. I just ripped the engine right off the airplane so it fell on its tail. Wings, left horizontal stabilizer, right wing 4. You can literally do structural failures. Control surfaces, right aileron 1 lock, rudder 1 lock. Or max up and left, flap 1 full retract, left aileron surface up, lock at center if you want a control surface to lock at the center, max down or right, right flap 1 full extended, right aileron 1 surface down, or depart the aircraft, flap surface gone. So you can literally remove flight controls from the airplane. All right, next thing we can do is go to map. Oh, and we can see all that horrible weather front I just brought in. And this just shows where the airplane is going, of course. And what is kind of interesting is you see all of the various different nav aids here, and you drag with 2 fingers. But this is kind of cool. Watch. I can click on any nav aid I want and fail it. And so I can tell somebody to fly an ILS, and then in the middle of this ILS, I can make the ILS inoperative. And what's he going to do when he doesn't have needles? Is he going to have the sense to go to a plan B that makes some sense? Or is he just going to fly the airplane right into the ground looking for needles he's never going to find? Incredibly important failure to be able to simulate. All right, let's restore that. Another kind of cool thing I can do is go to primary flight display, and now I see his speed and altitude and synthetic vision. So even though I'm in the back of the airplane, I can still see what the guy is doing. Another cool one is glide slope, so you can see his path down the glide slope, and with the top view, you can see his path down the ILS as well. Pretty standard stuff for an instructor station to really see what the pilot is doing. Next menu up is commands, where I can send in any command I want. Show FPS, and now I show the frame rate of the sim, and then I can toggle it. And the final menu is situations. What I can do is set sliders here, where if I don't have a friend of mine controlling the weather on iPad, or a frenemy, perhaps would be better, we can set an AI to sit here in the iPad and control the weather for you. And so if you just set these little sliders on your iPad and then proceed to fly X-Plane, you'll have a little AI that's setting all your weather and failures and stuff like that. And then you can save situations, call this test, save as test. Okay, now the situation's been saved. And then if you ever want to load it, you'll see some other situations I've saved here. So that's how it all works. Give it a try. If you use these apps well, you'll come out with some incredible training.